All right, guys, I've just begun a 200 square foot art studio. It's going to be pretty modern in design. I'm doing a 12-inch wide footing and a 4-inch stem wall, so it's kind of like a beefy, streamlined little footing. And yeah, I'm hoping to get it done in about 5 weeks, and I want to show you every little part of it. So as you can see, I've come in around, cleaned things up. This is like a hard pan clay, so I had to dig down in certain areas. I've got a few depressions that are just going to get filled with more concrete than others. But clean this all up so it's easy to work. I've pegged in these little pieces of rebar, and they're 1.5 inches above the surface of the footing. So those will be sticking up, and that's something I can lay my run of rebar inside of my 4-inch stem wall. And sticking these little spacers, that's just a cinder block broken up, and those are going to hold up my 2 runs of rebar that I'm going to put in here. And I'm just doing 1/2 inch. On a house you would do 5/8, but this is already pretty much overkill. I just have fun doing this, so let's make it really nice. Just got all of my rebar laid in here. I like doing 3 through the corners. I find it's a little easier to bend whatever your long piece is, and then pre-bend a bunch of smaller 90s and just drop them in there. So that gives you a little extra support on those corners, and I'll be ready to pour this in another day. Well, this Harbor Freight concrete mixer is supposed to mix 3 cubic yards. I've been doing 1 bag. I'm not stressing this thing, and it's brand new, but this cotter pin just completely disintegrated while I was mixing. So I honestly don't know what to do other than try to make a new one with this 3/8 rebar. All right, well, here it is. We'll see how that works out. This also came without holes pre-drilled, and I realized in order to keep this thing stable, I need this bolt to go through here, so thank you. See if that works. Looks like it. It was honestly kind of silly to think that would work. It might, but I don't have time to mess with that mixer right now. It's Harbor Freight, it's brand new. Probably went through about 8 bags. So that's about what you can expect from that tool. So I just finished pouring the footing. Everything went pretty well. And as I was going, I would backtrack once the concrete cured a little bit, and I was tapping in these anchors. And that is a hold down that's gonna be basically 3.5 inch stem wall form, and then 1.5 inch bottom plate, and that's how I'm going to attach this house to the footing. Just got the forms off here, and I washed it down just to make sure there's no dust. And I do want this stem wall that I'm going to form out and pour today, I do want it to adhere to the new concrete, but I'm not using any kind of primer or anything like that. So this is the way that I designed this rebar in the small stem wall to work. I left these 1.5 inches off so that once I set a piece of 1/2-inch rebar on top of that. We're right in the center of that stem wall, and then I set my anchors just off to the side so that I can tie to these, which will keep it in place. Probably try to tie to this, although that's not like a super good connection, but it turned out really well as far as the lines. I just laid out my sticks here, and that's the way that I'm pouring this little stem wall. So I went around and straightened out these forms, especially on these long runs. You're gonna need to stake and form those so they all follow my snap lines, and especially the corners, those need to be really accurate. And now I'm ready to pour this thing. So the stem wall is now poured. I'm gonna let this sit for a day or two and then break the forms off, and then we're gonna be able to start putting on pressure treated bottom plate and then build our floor structure above that. Okay, I just got the sill plate all laid down. I'm sealing all of these joints and corners, which I've actually never done, but I'm using Vulchem, and I think that's probably a wise choice. So I've decided to frame this a little bit differently than a common house, which you'd probably have your joists inset and you'd have a lot taller stem wall. But to save myself some digging, what I'm gonna do is put my joist right on top of this sill plate, and then I'll have that rim joist on the outside, flush with the outside, and then I'll have my OSB sheathing coming down and connecting that all together. It's a perfectly good way to do it. So the way I designed these joists to work is I'm running 93-inch long spans all the way through this whole big section on the side that I'm on. And so what I need for those to end here is I need to carry the weight of the floor on this side. So I'm running a beam here, and it is just a doubled 2x6, which is the material I'm using for my joists, but I'm gonna pour a footing in place right in the center of this span just to make sure this is way more than adequate to carry the 4 or 5 joists that are gonna land on this. And then from here over, we're running this way, so we're all good there. Now, typically with a footing like this, you'd be putting a post or something wooden because you gotta let the concrete dry and it's gonna shrink. What I'm gonna do instead, just because of the limitation of space here, is I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna put in a couple of larger shims and just prop that thing right up, and it'll sit like this under here forever. I also covered the beam in some petroleum gasket tape just to discourage any water ever working up through this concrete and up into my beam and rotting out the bottom of it. So that'll be a nice barrier between that and this. So I'm now done framing the whole floor system, but there's a couple little things I still need to do. For instance, where I've got these seams in the rim joist, I'm gonna put a block across there. Another consideration is venting this space. Normally on a house, you'd have a lot taller stem wall and you'd have vents inside of the concrete. What I'm gonna do is cut them into the rim joists, only on the gable ends, so that there's not a load in those spots. And it's just gonna go right through the rim joist, and I've got some nice little covers for that. So you'll notice that these little vent covers have the bug wire in there, which is why I didn't seal it on the outside. But what I'm gonna do is put some more bug wire over here just so nothing can ever get inside of this space. So after using a hammer tacker for years, whenever I was stapling stuff, I got a little bit smarter. I bought one of these. They're only 30 bucks. And yeah, you do need your hose. I'm sure there's a one that isn't air powered out there, but this is just so much better, so much more accurate. That's nice and tight. So I'm gonna stop the video right here and do this in a bunch of parts, because I'm realizing this is gonna be a big series. What I do need to do is put down plastic underneath. It would have been easier to do it before, but I'm stopping right now for a few days because it's gonna rain a whole bunch, and I don't want that plastic just gathering a ton of water underneath here before I close it up. So we're just gonna let the rain run through, and then we'll get into insulating this and everything else after that.